We're going over system concepts, Article 41, the importance of effort.
Sometimes we advance to a point where we find the work easy because we have already attained a minimal perception of the Creator. We understand in our mind, more or less, how the system works and start to lose the need for advancement. These situations are given to us in order to allow us to choose what we really want in life without needing our pain to fuel our advancement.
You might say that we desire to become the Creator, but these states where we make little effort are sent to us in order to show us our current lack of desire. We feel no desire to advance fast. Rather, we can take our time. There is no hurry for attainment, since life is moving nicely forward and effort can always be done tomorrow.
The moments where we can decide to advance with our own feeling of free choice is when there is no coercion from physical externality or spirituality internality. These are previews of our middle line, where we advance without inner or external pressure. We advance because of our importance of our future, not because of circumstance in our present.
And here's a quote of the sons of Korah from the word karach, bold, meaning that the hair has gone bald. Se'arot mean hastarot, concealments, from the word se'ara, storm. It is known that reward is according to the effort. This means that when there are se'arot, it is a place for work. And when corrected, hair comes over the storm by way of, this is the gate of the Lord. And when one has corrected all the storms and has no more concealments, then he hasn't any room for work, and therefore has no place for reward. It follows that when a person comes to the state of Korah, he can no longer extend faith, called the gate to the Lord. This is because if there is no gate, one cannot enter the king's palace, since it is the foundation, since the entire structure is built on faith. Sons of Korah comes from the word bina. They understood that Korah is considered left, from which hell extends. This is why they wanted to continue their past friendship. From the time they were in the form of, O Lord, I have heard the report of thee, and am afraid. Zohar Bereshit 4:7. This means that with the strength they had extended from the past, they can endure the states and go from strength to strength. This is the meaning of the sons of Korah died not. That is, they understood that if they remained in a state of Korah, they would not be able to continue living, so they did not die. From the article 101, a commentary on the Psalm for the leader upon roses, Shamati, by Baal Sulam.
Every person has a different approach toward their efforts, and each works to overcome various obstacles. One struggles with the words, while another is frustrated with the meaning of Kabbalah texts. One finds it hard to get to workshops or lessons, while another has a problem finding time to read Kabbalah books or listening to lessons. A person should try to raise the effort from a physical to a spiritual struggle to increase the effectiveness of the effort. But either way, exertion is a requirement for attainment.
And here's a quote. A sage comes to town. The Creator is called sage. He comes to town because on Shavuot, Pentecost, he shows himself to the world. The sluggard saith, there is a lion on the way. Perhaps the sage is not at his home. Perhaps the door is locked. Our sages said that the thing is, if you labored and did not find, do not believe. Hence, if he sees that he has not found the nearness of the Creator, then he is told that he must not have labored sufficiently. This is why the verse calls him sluggard. And what is the reason that he did not labor? If he is seeking the nearness of the Creator, why does he not want to make an effort? After all, even if you want to obtain a corporeal thing, you still cannot obtain it without labor. In truth, he does not want labor, and it is not that he says there is a lion on the way, meaning the Sitra Achra, as it is written, as a lion in secret places. This means that one who begins the path of the Creator encounters the lion on the way, and those who fall in it cannot recover. That is why he is afraid to start, for who can defeat it? Then he is told, there is a lion on the way, meaning there is none else besides him. It is written, this is because there is no other force but him, by the way of, and God hath so made it, that men should fear before him. This is number 126, a sage comes to town, Shamate Baal HaSalam.
When we are not being pushed from behind or pulled toward our future, it becomes comfortable. Therefore, it is difficult to commit ourselves to advancing. We find many excuses for not making the effort. Some might even be convincing. The issue is that our spirituality is for ourselves, and it's our desire alone that defines our path of development. We connect with a group to collect discernments, but our attainment is independent of anyone else's desire for advancement. If we want to advance, we will find a way to make the effort. Otherwise, it just won't happen. This is where the group of friends can provide a lot of help to discern, scrutinize, and criticize our situation.
And here's a quote. And then he finds another excuse. Perhaps the holy sage is not at home. His home is Nukba, the holy Shekhinah, divinity. Then he cannot know for certain if he is walking on the path of Kedusha, sanctity, or not. This is why he says that perhaps the sage, meaning the Creator, is not at his home. That is to say, this is not his home, not of the Kedusha. So how can he know that he is advancing in Kedusha? Then he is told, the sage is at home, meaning one's soul shall teach him, and at last he will know that he is advancing in Kedusha. Then he says, perhaps the door is locked and it is impossible to get in, as it says, not all who wish to take the Creator will come to and take. Then he is told, the door is not locked. After all, we can see that many people have been rewarded with admission into the king's palace. And then he replies, either way, I will not go. This means that if he is sluggard and does not want to exert, he becomes argumentative and shrewd, and thinks that they are only making the work heavier on him. But in truth, one who wishes to exert sees the opposite. He sees that many have succeeded, and those who do not want to exert see that there are people who did not succeed. And even though they did not succeed, it is because they discovered that they did not want to exert. But since he is sluggard and only wants to justify his actions, he preaches like a wise one. In truth, the burden of the Torah and mitzvot should be accepted without any arguments and complaints, and then he will succeed. 126, a sage comes to town. Shamati Baal HaSalam.
We do not need to prove a point to anyone, including our own future state. The effort itself is what advances us. It increases the importance of the goal, since wherever we do effort, we increase our care and love for that work. This is called importance of the Creator, which means the importance of our internal power.
And here's the quote. Diminishing the light is its correction. This means that nothing is achieved without effort. And because it is impossible to achieve the complete light in utter clarity, the advice is to diminish the light. In this way, it is possible to attain it with the little effort that the lower one can give. This is similar to one who wishes to move a large building. Of course, this is impossible. So what does he do? He takes the building apart into small bricks and he can move each piece. So it is here. Through diminishing the light, one can make a little effort. From the article 202, in the sweat of thy face shall thou eat bread. From Shamati by Baal Salam.
We have the first workshop question. What is effort, and why is it so important for our spiritual advancement? Maria.
I would say that the effort is that internal work where we initially look at what's happening and we realize that it's actually not what it's not a reality. Like we look at it objectively, and that takes effort aside from actually all of the things that take us away from concentrating on the goal, and making that still, putting effort and making that still more important above all other desires.
Mary.
The effort and the work is to continually not become complacent, but to see, to keep making discernments and seeing the work that we need to do internally, and to keep the goal in the forefront of our mind, and just to constantly strive toward improving our situation and ourselves and bestowal.
Mark.
Well, the effort is important because once we firmly affix the goal in mind and we know what we want, it's not enough to go through the motions. It's not enough to attend the sessions or do the readings. I mean, that's part of it, but it takes an effort, a concentrated effort to move forward. And without that effort, there's nothing. You stay where you're at, you plateau, or you cannot advance without the effort. You must effort. It has to be something that you desire along with the goal, in conjunction with the goal, to move forward.
Moshe.
Well, the effort is basically internalizing the concepts and making them yours, so it's about taking concepts and discerning what they really are and gaining more details to them, and by doing so you're building a desire to understand them more and actually to make them real. So that's the effort, and obviously it's important, obviously, because that's, it builds a desire for advancement, and the more desire you have, the more you can move to your future state.
Rick.
Effort is taking action on your desires. It's learning to do it in a correct manner is what our spiritual advancement is.
Robin.
Right. You can't, let's see, effort. Effort is internalizing concepts, like Moshe said. You can't be like a gnome in the garden and expect the water to do anything to you. You have to be more like a plant, to take in the water and do something with it, assimilate it so you can grow.
The effort is the collection of the discernments and the internalization of the discernments. Of course, to enable the effort, you have to sort of, let's say watch sessions or come to sessions or read books and read articles and so forth. But the actual effort itself, the spiritual effort, is collecting the discernments and internalizing those discernments. You could have someone who does physical effort, where they come to the sessions and they're doing this for a long time, and there's just no spiritual advancement because they're doing physical effort, and they're not doing the spiritual effort of collecting the discernments and internalizing them, emotionalizing them within you and making them part of you. So instead of you saying, I heard something from System Concepts, it's like it becomes part of me, and therefore it's my idea now instead of somebody else's idea. The second question, why are these situations of no internal or external pressure given to us for advancement? Maria.
I would say that they're given to us because up until a point, thereafter, in order to advance, we have to use adornment. In other words, we're not being pushed towards advancement, but we actually have to be pulling towards it, and therefore it requires advancement. Adornment. So we may not necessarily feel any need. Everything that we need or want may be met, and therefore we have to actually really have an intense desire to want this goal, and to therefore add adornments to it.
Mary.
It gives us the opportunity to increase our desire and the importance of the goal, and evaluate, what we're doing, why we're doing it, what we really want, and to build that importance and faith, and make the effort, and use the lack of moving forward as turn it into fuel to keep persevering and desire advancement.
Mark.
I think it's precisely this situation that separates the wheat from the chaff. This is when you realize that either I do have the desire, or I don't have the desire, and you can see that without having desire, you're not going to advance. So it's a perfect spot to make your stand, make your choice. I'm going to move forward, or I don't care, or I'm going to stay where I'm at. But it's a tipping point.
Moshe.
Well, again, it's like what everybody's been saying. It's to build, is to actually have real importance for something and not be faced with pressure for it. And it's actually real importance when you're not, faced with external pressure or internal pressure, because that's easy, people that's just the easy way out. But when somebody really wants something, they without sort of anything that's affecting him, that really just builds that desire the right way, the correct way, and that's that adornment.
Rick.
It's as I've spoken, it's like if you don't have any pressure from internally or externally, then you have to find it within yourself. Why are you seeking this? Is it what you truly want? And if it is, what will you do to obtain it? So if you don't have these pressures given to you, this is something you have to create within yourself. It's like planting a garden to grow what you need, that desire to advance.
Robin.
I think that these situations come, and they are times when you really just are with yourself and you see yourself. I mean, you have to deal with yourself, and that's where you make the real decisions on whether to go forward or not.
So these situations of no internal or external pressure, the idea is that if you want to make a choice, you want to make sure that there's no person pressuring you, and there's no internal burning that is forcing you to make a choice, right? It's like you don't want to eat because you're hungry, and you don't want to eat because someone's forcing you to eat. The idea is that you want to eat because you desire to eat. That is, there's no force on you. You don't want that force to be internal or external, and then you can actually make that desire your own. And Jenny wrote, first of all, the effort is giving our half shekel, it's being part of the group. And second, because we need to desire it. And the third question, how can the friends help us in such situations? Maria.
I would say two things. One, the friends in the group really help with discernments and cleaning up concepts. But also they advertise this because we're being in a group that actually is putting a lot of value into this goal. And so it also serves as an advertisement, as looking where everybody's at, where do I want to be, and sort of pushing that in that sense, but also with discernments as well.
Mary.
They inspire us and, set an example and provide us with a source of envy, among many other things. They support us in advancement.
Mark.
Well, I think the biggest help the friends are was two things that I can think of. But one thing is, if I have a desire and I want this, Like's already been said, it gives me the envy. I can see that, yes, this is possible. Here are people that I know, people that I'm with, that have actually done this. So it's possible for me to do this, number one. Number two, perhaps they can even help me by saying, you are plateaued. Myself, I can be real tricky. I can say, well, I've got what I need, I'm doing what I can. And somebody else from the outside can be more objective and say, no, you're not. You're in a shell, or you're not pursuing the goal as you should be. So it's those two things for me. Thank you.
Moshe.
Well, we learn a lot from what others have to say. It's just, again, it's just showing you a bit more about yourself through others. And really, in regards to effort, right, it's I think, it's like what people have been saying, it's envy and using that force of envy positively and wanting to attain what others have attained. So that's how to use the group, effectively.
Rick.
There's no moving ahead without the group. You will go and spin your wheels and not go anywhere. You may move little by little, and maybe 25 or 30 years, you might gain a phase or two, but you're not going to go anywhere. You need to build the trust and dependence that you need to find in each other. You need to find a way to bring everyone within inside yourself to help connect yourself to that source correctly. You need your friends to take and bring you through your descent when you fall down, or even, whatever the breaking or whatever you're going through at any moment. You need everyone, because that's what's going to bring you out of it. It'll keep you from plateauing and going into a shell. And if you do go into a shell, your friends are the key that unlock it and bring you out. That prison that you locked yourself in doesn't open back up without someone else giving you a hand. Thank you.
Robin.
Right. Our own perception is just not clean enough to pursue the goal properly on your own. So you need the group. You need their discernments. You need the envy that is stimulated when you see other people moving ahead, and also the examples and the insights that they have in the states that you are striving to get to.
Jenny writes, friends help to gauge where we are closer or further away from the goal. So the friends, what they do, the main issue of the friend is that he's sort of outside of me. That is that he's not dependent on my state that I'm currently in. I could be in a state of smallness, greatness, I could be in a plateau, I could be in a shell. And the idea is that the friends are independent of my state. And the idea is that anything I'm actually going to think is always going to be a result of my state. And that's why a person can't actually advance by himself. Because anything you'll think is always going to be the result of his state. And you can't go to a higher state with your current state. So what you need are discernments from other people, which are independent from your state. And then with that information, with those discernments, when you internalize them, they actually give you the power, the energy, the effort to actually grow to a higher state. And that's why we say without the friends, we can't advance, because the idea is that anything that I can think of, anything I can feel will always be a result of the state I am in my subconscious. So anything consciously I think will always be a result of my subconscious. So what I need are people outside of me, which is basically deeper parts of my subconscious that I can bring into my conscious, and therefore I can actually advance to the next degree. Because instead of trying to consciously think to be able to advance, I'm using thoughts that are manifesting from my subconscious to my reality. And by internalizing those concepts, then actually I can advance to the next degree. So what do you all think of the article?
Well, I think that last explanation you just gave was amazing. I think this is pretty good. that our state is a result. Everything that we do is a result of our state, and to reach our next state, we can't do it because we're in a present state, and we need some external stimulus to give us new ideas, new discernments to reform our perception and move to a higher state. So I thought that was pretty good.
I liked it. I'm going to have to listen to this again now.
I liked it a lot too. I really liked the quotes from Shamanti, and I want to go back and ponder those some more. They're good.
I like the way that it showed us how our, by the questions even, about our spiritual, why is our effort important in our spiritual advancement? These are questions that we need to ask ourselves, because a lot of people, they think they're putting out effort and they're not putting out anything. So it starts to show us the difference and separation between the phases and, that states that people are in. And the same thing with no internal and external pressure. You don't hear these questions anywhere else. You're not getting this anywhere else. So it's an amazing thing to come up to, Why are these situations of no internal and external pressure given to us? Why, just a state of that evenness, that balance? And it's not a question you usually find, and that's why all these articles are like that. They're just great. They have a lot of depth to them.
I like this article because these are things that we have heard before, or I've heard before, but this kind of lumps it together. This kind of puts it together in a new way. It seems real concise and clear. So these aren't revolutionary ideas, but they're put together in a concise way. This is very, very easy to understand, and I thought it was great.
This article was written, most of the articles are written in response to a certain situation I observed. Right? So I observe a situation, and then I summarize that situation into an article. So it's like the article is above time, space, and motion. Which what that means is it's not written when I wrote it. It's not written, it's not written what time I wrote it, where I wrote it, or who I wrote it of. Right? So it's above time, space, and motion. Where time is, physical time. Space is where I was when I wrote it. Like sort of, it's not like I'm saying, well, I'm writing this in Jerusalem. So it's, because then someone would say, oh, it's only about Jerusalem. It's got nothing to do with America. And I'm not saying, what time of day it is or like what date it is. Oh, that's, that's now, but, 10 years ago it was different. And I'm not writing the motion. I'm not saying, oh, it's about this person. Oh, I'm not that person. So therefore it's got nothing to do with me. So the articles are written above time, space, and motion, but they're written from a situation which was attained in time, space, and motion. And that's what most Kabbalah is built on. Kabbalah is written as above time, space, and motion, but was experienced and attained in actual situations that were at a specific time, a specific place, which is space, and with a specific motion, which were people that were involved. And this article was written when someone was not feeling that pressure, not internally or externally, and was plateauing. It didn't feel a need to move. It's like everything's great, so why advance? But those are the best times to actually advance clearly, because you've not got pressure, you've not got that tension that is not allowing you to think. It's these moments where you're not coerced in any way, not internally or externally. These are moments where you can actually feel that you made a choice. And even though we say that it's all predetermined, everything, but we're talking about our feeling. And our feeling is that if I've not got an internal pressure or external pressure, the decision I'm making, I can do with a clear mind instead of some tension pushing me. And then the tension is what is sort of forcing me to move and not discernments. So the idea is that when we're experiencing a situation where there's tension, what is the first thing we try to do? we try to disconnect from the tension, go above the tension, so we can actually collect discernments. Because discernments which are collected when you're in tension aren't clear discernments. But discernments which are collected while you're not in tension, those are clear discernments.
Yeah, but sometimes you're faced with tension and you gotta have discernments. Why would we say that they're not clear?
Well, that's like you need the friends. When you're in turmoil, when you're going through a situation of tension, you're overloaded, you're emotionally overloaded, how can any of your discernments make sense? It's one of the reasons why when someone's in a shell, they're so incoherent, they can't make straight thoughts. They think they're making the most straightest thoughts, but everybody else can just hear how they're like contradicting themselves, skipping between things. There's just no coherent thought process because they're emotionally tied and therefore they can't think straight. Because the emotion opposes the mind, right? The heart opposes the mind. So if you're emotionally tied and you're contracted with that emotion, then you can't think straight, you can't expand. So it's the first thing that the friends normally do when you're in this tied situation is they give you a release. They sort of take you outside of that emotion, disconnect for a moment, and then allow you to sort of focus on discernments. And then when you've collected those discernments, then you can inject those discernments into the emotion you were having, expand that emotion, and then you finalize that state with new emotion of, oh, that's great. Oh, I got insights. Thank you so much. That emotion, that acceptance, finalize that emotion, and now you're in the next state. And we constantly do that. So if someone's tied into their emotion, how can they make any real discernments? They first need to accept it, which is normally disconnect from that emotion to be able to make discernments, which is normally like the left line. So you've got the emotion, which is the right line, discernments, is the left line, and you can't make those clear discernments when you're stuck in an emotional turmoil situation.
Well, the bottom line is this. You can't be attached to the emotion, but if you're rising above the emotion, whether it's through the help of the friends or whether it's through your acceptance that you understand, either way, that's the way to do it and to have discernments in objective manner.
Exactly.
You know?
But the idea is that depending on how locked you are, that will decide if you can do it yourself or not. So there's situations where you're tiny, like slightly locked, and then you can say, okay, I accept this, you go out, you click discernments, it's fine. Then you're in a situation where you're locked even further. Then you need to, let's say, read an article or, here's a lesson or whatever, and that helps you to sort of disconnect and make discernments. But you might be in a situation where you're even locked even more, and then you need to go to the group and actually talk with the group about it. And then they can help you disconnect and make discernments. But then there's a situation where you're totally locked. And in those situations, only your individual can help you get out of it because you're going to be sharing the details. You're going to be sharing the emotional details of where you're locked. And the friend will help you explain yourself and sort of make yourself observe them. And then you're able to actually go out. So it's like depending on how locked you are into that emotion, that will decide of what can you use to get yourself out of. Can you do it yourself? Can you do it by, you could say, static discernments, which is sort of like books or videos, whatever? Does it need to be something more dynamic, like friends, but it's still general? Or is it the individual, which is dynamic, but it's also applied to you?
So I just want to get this straight. We said emotion is what? Is the right line? That's you're saying you're stuck in the right line, let's just say?
Exactly.
Okay, so you're stuck in the right line and you rise above the emotion and now, to have discernments. And now you swing to the left.
Yeah.
You swing to the left line and you collect enough discernments and then you bring it back to the middle line. Is that it? Is that sort of internalizing it?
Exactly. The internalization is sort of injecting the discernments into the right line, and that makes the middle line.
And that's the middle line, okay.
Yeah. So the process is normally, if we look at it in, let's say, the emanations, so it goes something like this. You fall into gevura, which is judgment, and it's also called fear. And because you're in that fear, you can't think straight. And remember that judgment, that fear is actually on the left line, right? But the idea is that even though it looks like it's on the left line, because remember, the idea is that if a person's thinking, only then can they actually be in fear, right? If someone's totally annulled, they can't even be in fear. So they have to have some kind of consciousness to actually have fear. And that consciousness is called gevura. It's called judgment. Then what you have to do is you have to shift to the right line. The right line is called kindness. That is called acceptance. Once you've gone in that kindness, that chesed, which is acceptance, then you go back to the left, which is bina, right? You're going higher up, bina, which is on the left. And that is making discernments. Bina from the word havanot, havchanot, which are discernments. which is, bina is from the word, that the idea is that you're separating between two things, right? So you're above the judgment, right? And you're also above the acceptance, because you're actually making discernments. Because if you're just an acceptance, you're like, accept it. But to make discernment says you want to change it to something, higher. And then from that, then you go to the right line, which is chachma, which is where you emotionalize the discernments that you got. And then finally you reach keter, which is crown. And that's the middle line that brings you into your next state.
When you broke it down with the sfirot, I thought that was a lot clearer for me. I know we talked about this a bit, and I thought when he broke it down with the sfirot, I think it gives it more life.
And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to take the structure and take the application of it and merge them together. Do you want to repeat it?
Yes, I loved it. Yeah.
Okay, so I'll repeat it again. I'll start actually from the bottom. So we have reality. Reality is called Malchut, it's kingdom. Then we have an experience from that reality. That's called Tiferet, which is beauty. Right? Beauty is talking about a balance between details and abstraction. Then the idea, we go to Gevura, which is judgment. That's where we have our fear. It's called Pachad. Right? Sometimes in the Kabbalah books, instead of Gevura, it's called Pachad, which is fear. Then you go to Chesed, which is kindness, which is acceptance. Then you go to Bina, which is discernments. Then you go to Chochmah, which is to internalize those discernments. And then you reach Keter, the middle line, which moves you on to your next state, to a next state of reality. Because the idea is that the Keter of the Tachton, which is the crown of the lower, is the Malchut of the Elyon, which is the kingdom of the upper. And that's how all the phases interconnect. You're always going through that path. You're going from reality to experience, to fear, to acceptance, to discernments, to emotionalizing those discernments, to your next phase. And then again, you start at the bottom again, reality, experience, fear, acceptance, discernments, emotionalizing those discernments, next phase, which is the crown of the goal. You're always moving up. And that is the effort. The effort is making those movements, right? So let's say you're in acceptance. If you're staying in acceptance, you're doing loads of acceptance. That's not the effort. The effort is moving from one to the other, because each time you're having to make yourself opposite. It's like, if I'm in fear, how can I do acceptance? And if I'm in acceptance, how can I do discernments? If I'm in discernments, how can I emotionalize them? If I'm emotionalizing them, how can I want to move to my next state? So you're constantly having to turn yourself over, and that is the effort. Make sense?
Yes.
Yes.
That was great. Would you say that most often we get stuck making discernments and not being able to scrutinize them correctly, or that's when we need the group? I'm trying to think where we most often get stuck.
So what I've noticed is that each person gets stuck in a different phase. So some people, for example, have an inclination more to the fear. Some people have an inclination to be more in the acceptance. Some people have an inclination to be more in the discernments, and so forth. So the idea is that each person has their strengths and weaknesses, and the advantage of the group is that if you take a group, you'll probably find that each one has a dominance in one of those emanations, and therefore can help the rest of the group with that point. So you have someone who's great at collecting new realities. You have somebody else who's great at experiencing those realities. You've got somebody else who's great at having fear, which means actually experiencing them sort of in the consciousness, not just in the subconscious, experiencing them. And then you've got someone who is great at acceptance. And you've got somebody else who is great at collecting discernments. You've got somebody else who's great at emotionalizing those discernments. And you've got somebody else who's always focused on the goal. So the group allows you to have a combination of these advantages, and then each person can help each other with their advantages accordingly.
It sounds like a swinging pendulum.
Definitely. And this is part of why, why advancement is so hard. You're constantly having to shift yourself. It's like walking. You have to put your left leg and then right leg. Think of a baby, right? Trying to walk. It doesn't understand what, I have to put my left leg and then my right leg? But what if I fall? It's like, no, then you put your left leg again. Yeah, but I could fall now. No, but if you put your right leg, and you're constantly having to shift legs. When it comes second nature, then it's easy. But the process of getting to that second nature, it takes time. The importance of effort is at any stage you are. What constantly happens is that people sort of have a certain goal. They reach it, and then they're like, well, I've reached it, so now I don't have to do any effort anymore. It's like, no, now you have to do different effort. And even the effort changes along the way. So the idea is that's what the advantage of knowing the phases and having the group and the individual is, to help you sort of focus, okay, where do I have to be now? What do I have to focus on? And that's what we're doing as we continue to evolve in system concepts, is revealing more and more layers. It's like at the beginning, it was like, okay, you just have unformed, chaos, darkness, and spirit. And then it was like, well, you actually have phases. You have humanity, spiritual society, group, and individual. And it's like, well, there's a difference between, primordial man, or the world of deficiencies, or the world of emanation, or the world of correction. And then it's like, well, you have different classes. And well, you have subclasses, and you have subphases. And every time we're revealing new and new nuances that can help a person advance so much easier, instead of having to struggle every moment along the path. And that's the evolution that we're doing in system concepts. All right, I think we'll stop here and enter the after party.